listen, son, give up that drink and give it everything you've got. But I dreamt of defending a world title there and being announced. I'd hear the words, "Welcome to the ring, world champion Dennis Hogan." In the town where I'm from, there's many directions you could take, and there's definitely a bad path you could have went down.
That's all what you learn in the ring, though, right? When you're training with your granddad at 7 years old, that's what he's teaching you indirectly.
He turned around and my grandfather said, "You guys," as we were running around warming up, he said, "You're sparring him." And he turned around and he's like, "You're dead," and all this. I got in and just started thumping the shit, like just proper boxing, but I was getting the better of him bad. And then he went poof and kneed me in the groin. The stuff they were saying to me in the lead up too, you know, they were calling me everything. They were calling me alcoholic, he's going to get hammered, all this kind of stuff. It had been in the papers that I'd given up alcohol and stuff, and they were going right for it. On the weigh-in day, we were like nearly going to go at it on a stage. You ever see fighters before? They get in the ring, it's just like dogs going off at each other. But then at the very end, okay, I respect you now. Sometimes the best fights I've had, when I've been pissed off. This could make or break everything, all my dreams. If you can do well against these guys, then you say, actually, what can stop me from actually going that step further and doing what they did? This is the turning point. From now on, I'm the world champion, and every decision I make will be about achieving that goal.
Gentlemen, welcome back to the Men's Collective podcast, the place where we explore the stories of men who embody resilience, grit, and the relentless pursuit of purpose. We are the Average Joes, Wayne Taylor here, and I'm joined as usual by a couple of the Average Joes fellas and a special guest that I'll introduce shortly, but I'll start with the fellas. Mikie, Miguel, thanks for coming back, boys.
Good to be back,
here.
Miguel's been a while.
Been really busy. Got some good contracts nationally now. So yeah, hitting the road.
Just a quick recap on your work, mate, because that's been a bit of a thing for you.
Just building out the disposal side of the business for the auction side of things. You've got a fair bit going on in WA and the Eastern Seaboard. Couple of weeks off signing some pretty major stuff, I suppose, with some Tier 1 mining companies, which feed into Legacy 88. So money that we make out of that obviously goes into rescuing the kids. So a couple of our guys just come back on Monday from doing some ops in Asia, which all went really successfully. And obviously partnering with AJ's too to see what we can do there and what we're going to focus on to make people's lives a bit better, I suppose.
Yeah, good. So well, it's good to get behind a mic again, though. We've had, as most of you would know.
Did you just say it's good to get behind Mike again?
That's where your brain went. Well, as most of you know, we've had so many technical issues here in the studio, but it's good to be back. It's good to be recording again.
Mate, excited.
Really, really good. Look, today we are spotlighting a special guest whose journey transcends way beyond the boxing ring. 2022 IBO Super Welterweight World Champion, known as the Hurricane, born in Kildare, Ireland, and now calling the lovely state of Queensland, Australia home. Began his boxing journey with over 150 amateur bouts, clinching the All-Ireland Light Heavyweight Championship. Turning professional in 2011 and embarking on a path marked by tenacity and unwavering determination. 2019, he faced the undefeated Yami, I said the name wrong all the time, Jaime Munguia, for the WBO Super Welterweight title. Despite a performance that onlookers believed deserved a victory, he was handed a very controversial loss. Undeterred, he then stepped up for the challenge for the WBC middleweight title the very same year, showcasing his absolute fearless spirit. After a few setbacks, including a bout with Australia's rising star Tim Tszyu, who we all know is the son of legend Costa Tszyu, his perseverance came to a head with a triumphant 2022 victory over Sam Eggington, earning him the IBO Super Welterweight world title at 37 years of age, an absolute testament to his enduring dedication. His story isn't just about boxing, though, it's about the embodiment of resilience, the courage to face adversity head-on, and the relentless pursuit to win. Welcome to the Men's Collective podcast, the Hurricane 2022 World Champion boxer, Dennis Hogan. Mate, welcome, buddy.
Thank you very much for that great intro. And I really like being here and chatting to you guys. So
good, mate. When you hear an intro like that, what goes through your head?
It seems like a lifetime ago, to be fair. I can't believe it all happened like that. But I know it was me, but it seems like a past life or something, you know. I'm glad to have gotten through it with only just a few scarred eyes and a bent nose, I suppose.
You were going to say something to me.
No, nothing, mate.
Mike has something. Well, mate, we really appreciate the fact that you've made the effort to be here with us. We are all excited, especially us here on the panel, but also I'm sure the audience, to hear your story, where it started, where it began, the whole journey, and obviously where it's headed now. So look, love to get straight into it, mate. I want to start with the inspiration behind it all. What made a young Dennis say, I want to be a boxer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose it was never really a decision. My grandfather, who had been a boxer himself, then for as far back as I can remember, was the local boxing coach. And so from the age of 5 or 6, he chucked us all into a car and brought us all training, being my brother and my cousins. And so that was it for me. I was a boxer for as long back as I can remember. Don't remember life without it. And from there on, I've always just been a boxer, up until my last fight.
How old are you, 6 and 7, you were saying?
Sorry?
How old did you say you started? You were
6?
6?
5 or 6, yeah.
5 or 6.
My first underage fight at 8, competitive fight at 11, and just went on to amateur to the age of 26, went professional at 27, and finished it out to 38. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but that's how I came into it. And I mean, I don't even know if it was one of those things where my grandfather was just there to pick us up and go training, and I just went. There was never any, do you like boxing? What do you want to do? Whatever. But I remember when I was 13, he got sick. He got sick to the point where it was like cold nights in these old places, old boxing gyms. There would have been no heating or whatever, and it was like, well, okay, he can't do that anymore. So then it was like, oh, okay. So then the season had started, and I hadn't gone anywhere else, and I was like, oh, geez, actually, this is on me now. So I ended up going to a gym of a friend of my grandfather's, and that was it. And I started kicking on again from there. But that was when I decided, oh, actually, this is what I actually do want to do. I'm not just being brought anymore. I actually like this stuff. So
with your grandfather being involved, at you being that five-ish year old, him picking you up every day and just taking you without really giving you the choice, do you think this generation now that we're in, do you think that kind of lacks? Do you think we give this next generation, like the way we are now in a world? Because you became world champion from, not, you were saying you weren't even given the choice, basically at the start. Your grandfather just picked you up, took you to training, and you were boxing. Then you found the passion for it yourself. Do you think the generation we have now, we're too soft towards kids like that? Like, do you think we should be taking kids and just putting them into things?
Yeah. Look, I do. Yeah, they definitely are kids. We do bring them, and they don't quarrel on it. So I don't know. It's if kids, I suppose, don't want to go, you got to get them into something that's going to teach them. Like, I didn't know this, but all the resilience and discipline and everything I was learning at that young age is still with me today, and has helped me be a world champion. But I didn't know all that was being instilled in me at the time. And, when I speak of my story, I used to train so hard at that young age. I used to always have a real painful stitch. And because I was the youngest, I used to have to face opponents much larger and stronger than me at that young age, And I even had this story the other day where I was on top of the world. I used to love it after training. My grandfather, we sat in the car and we were about to drive home, and he said something to me which I was chuffed about, right? And he said, well, son, I don't think you'll ever be knocked out, or you'll never be knocked out. And back then I was chuffed about this statement. Looking back now, I must have taken a fair few hits that day for him to say that. But I didn't know any different. And I actually got quite good with my defence. So throughout my career, I didn't take much punishment. But looking back at it all, it was the precursor to me being who I am. I don't know what direction, especially, I'm not saying, in the town where I'm from, there's many directions you could take, and there's definitely a bad path you could have went down. So I'm glad it was what it was.
Where you grew up in Kildare, is that I don't know anything about Ireland, but is that like a bad part of town, good part of town?
No, look, it's a lovely little spot, but in every town there is bad avenues to take. And like I said before, there was a lot of fight or flight walking around as a kid there, because you could walk around the corner and something could be said and it could be on just straight off the bat. So, I mean, even me as a boxer, I felt that. You know, I could imagine what it would feel like if I wasn't confident in my abilities. You know, imagine what all these other people were feeling. So yeah, I'm quite glad with the way it all turned out.
So when you were about like 17, 18, did your circle of mates go, oh, let's just invite Dennis out tonight because if he's here, we're good?
I do remember having a chat with a mate where they would always be, different towns would always be fighting when they went into different towns. I mean, even the teenage discos were just crazy. There was lads up on bonnets of cars punching the heads off each other, and it didn't happen every night, but it happened most nights. Yeah, and you know, even when I was a teenager, my second cousin of mine, got stabbed with another guy, and they all ended up in hospital, and all that kind of stuff was actually happening. But you know, luckily I was never involved in anything knife related or anything, but that would go on. But I will state, it was a fantastic county to grow up in, and if you got caught up in that, if you were willing to get caught up in that, you know, other than that, a fair fist fight was pretty much on the cards, you know, which I was not looking for, but I was up for if it was brought to me.
Did you ever lose a street fight that you got in?
No. But I do remember when I was 17, there was a 24-year-old, and he was known in the town, and I hit him a fair few. But when we went to the ground, we sort of got caught under a car. But his physical strength definitely had me, and he got a couple of knees up into me as well. So other than that, I probably got more shots off on that one. But if he's listening to this, he'd probably be laughing. But everyone I'd meet now, we'd all be pretty good to each other, you know. So
seems to be that sense of maturity that kicks in the older you get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially when people have had a bit of a blue. There's a lot more respect.
Absolutely,
it's like fighters when they finish in the ring. You ever see fighters before they get in the ring? You know, it's just like dogs going off at each other. But then at the very end, they're like, "Whoa, okay, I respect you now." Which I don't know. It's a real thing. So
I've often thought that, like, you see the build up to a match, and you know all the press conferences. Everyone's on the stage and they're getting each other's faces, pushing, and you're going to lead up to the fight going, this is going to be insane. This is great. The hatred, all this anger ready to go. They have the fight and the fight's over and they're smiling and patting. You go, your mate's the whole way through it.
No,
we've been gypped.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's really it's not that. But I remember Jimmy Kelly, the fella from England. We actually got on quite well after it. But there's stuff that was going on, and even his pals back home there as well. You'd be familiar with Whitenshaw, I think he was from, in Manchester. Yeah, and the back and forth that was going on between us and his guys and all that, and it was real. Like, it was proper. The stuff they were saying to me in the lead up too, you know, they were calling me everything. They were calling me. They were saying fucking alcoholic. He's going to get hammered and all this kind of stuff. And it had been in the papers that I'd given up alcohol and stuff. And they were going right for it. And even right up to it, even on the weigh-in day, we were like nearly going to go at it on the stage. And then afterwards, he come up to my locker room. He sat there, and he's just sitting there and just talking and all this. And I'm sort of like, I still don't really. But anyway, and turns out he is a nice fella. It's just that's what goes on. But another fella that had been on there to me, and he said, "I can't wait till after this fight. You're gonna find out." And he goes, "Here's my number. Call me after the fight or whatever." And I remember being out afterwards. We went back to a place to celebrate, and a notification came up, and he said, "Look, well done on your win. I'm prepared to take this phone call where you can say what you like back to me." And I'm like, "Don't even worry about it, pal. Like, it's over now, you know." The fighter that loses is humble in defeat. The guy who wins usually is gracious and has respect for what just happened. So, yeah,
that's all what you learn in the ring, though, right? When you're training with your granddad at 7 years old, that's what he's teaching you indirectly.
Yeah,
that's the humble, yeah.
You don't know. There was a guy actually who turned around and said he was an older, distant relation of mine, and he turned around and my grandfather said, "You guys," as we were running around warming up, he said, "You're sparring him." And he turned around and he's like, you're dead and all this. And the truth of it is, and that's why I don't remember this, or I'll never forget this. I got in and just started thumping the shit, like just proper boxing, but I was getting the better of him bad. And then he went boof and kneed me in the groin, should I say. And grandfather just stopped it. But I was still looking to go. But I learned also back in the early days, if you're arrogant or whatever, it doesn't tend to go your way. Stay humble, stay grounded, and stay wanting and needing. And I learned that very young, you know. So,
yeah. Are they trying to cover something up? A lack of ability when they're throwing their mouth a bit? Do you reckon?
Well, he was a good bit older than me. I think he thought, oh, this is my time to shine. I get this young fella. But like, he said enough to piss me off too, which usually goes against you, you know.
Yeah.
I've learned that too. Some of the best, sometimes the best fights I've had, when I've been pissed off, which I was able to channel the anger in the right way, not being stupid, but being proper, focused and switched on. You know, so, obviously, the first time, the one and only time I'd ever knocked someone like out cold, was, I was boxing I was boxing in the Europa Hotel up in Belfast, and I was walking out, and, it was the PSNI guards versus the Garda Síochána, and I was asked to box for them. So it was like Republic of Ireland guards versus the Northern Irish Police, and it's a peace thing. Like, it's, you know, and the Europa Hotel is the most bombed hotel in Europe from all the stuff that went on back in Ireland. So anyway, being a part of that was quite cool. But I was walking out to the ring and I got stopped, and they're like, no, you're not on now. There's a comedian on now for an hour. And I sat there absolutely stewing. Right, I was just so pissed that I had to sit back and had to cool down and then start warming up again. And I just had this pig in me, right? Double jab right hand, doof, and his legs fold, he's on the ground. And I started jumping around and they're like, stop, don't do that. This is a peace thing, you know? But it was crazy. It was crazy.
You just killed him.
Well, yeah.
It's back on. Yeah. And then the next 10 years was bombs and...
Yeah, so, but, you know, so, and then I didn't really think too much about that. But then there was another time where a guy was saying stuff that a former past girlfriend of mine had overheard, and she was a bit upset, and she told me, and she pointed at the guy that I was fighting. So I was in the ring anyway, and then he was trying to rough me up a little bit. So I just drove at him and drove him onto the ground and got another good win. So sometimes when I get annoyed, I get pissed off, I channel it right. It can really work for me, you know. So
why'd you look at me when you said that?
No.
Can we swap seats?
It's the reason we put you in the middle, mate.
Yeah.
I texted Dennis before you came and said, do you want to know what Miguel said about you? He said something interesting before this. He said, like, you were walking out and you had to wait the hour, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess the biggest thing we think from an audience is that, you know, you see warm-ups. And when you think of guys that are in a professional sporting scene, the warm-up is going for the jog, getting the body warm. But you were talking about also the mental warm-up. Like, you had taken yourself there mentally.
Yeah.
But then the fact you had to wait another hour, it's like not only does your body cool down, your brain cools down. So to get the warm-up back again is to get your body warmed up, but also the mental side of it.
Yeah.
That's a part of I've never even thought of.
But I was sitting there. Well, he probably knew, you see, because it was their show. So he was already starting his warm-up, but I was stewing at that point. So I just stayed. I wasn't able to come down and just relax and everything else. I was stewing. But I didn't mean to go out and rush the fight. But when that right hand landed, I just seen his legs go first. And I went, whoa. And then he was out. I thought, what a great feeling. To do it in sport, you know.
Yeah.
To do it in sport. He did look intimidating too, the fella, but... but no, that's what it is, mate. It's and I felt it too. Funny enough, my American debut, the nerves you feel, like, it's incredible. And some people have put it beside being on death row. That's the type of feeling. Yeah. Oh, it's because your whole so you imagine me boxing for all those years. Yeah,
comes down to that one moment.
And it comes down to that one moment. This is all or everything. I'm starting to feel it now, and you're just like, this could make or break everything, all my dreams.
Yep. And
the feeling of that is like every part of you wants to actually go that way, but once you get up into the ring and you see your opponent, it's like the Mike Tyson thing on a smaller, but then you want to go. But I'll just say that my first competitive fight was just, I was so extremely nervous. But what it is, it's fight or flight, right? And it was sickening nearly. I didn't get sick or anything, but it was sickening. So when I got in there and I had a win from my first, the feeling of that just gave me, just to overcome that and have a win, that fed my drive to win, like, all the fights that I did, fights, championship, 160 amateur fights. It all came back to that feeling when you overcome that. And I think I kept chasing that feeling over and over and over again.
When you're in a fight, and it lasts is it 12 rounds? What's the standard?
Oh, for a championship fight, it's 12 rounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're in a 12-round fight and it's blow for blow, point for point, and you get to the end and, you're both standing there beside the ref, and then it comes down to the decision of the judges, and, they hold their hand up kind of thing. It's one thing to go through that and wait for the points to come through to see who won, right? Compared to you just saying, knocking a bloke out. You don't come back from a knockout. If you knock the bloke out, is the feeling different between a win of points to a knockout win?
Oh, yeah. Look, and it's a great point that you're making, and so you just know, obviously, which is a great thing, but just when you do get the knockout, you've really won the fight. Like, you've surpassed, when you win it on points, and if you're waiting for the result, it means there was a bit of giving. You didn't completely dominate the person completely. So there is a bit of a difference there. But yeah, it is far better to get a TKO or a knockout or whatever, So,
well, so on that, when it is going down to points, you boys know who's won it, really?
Yeah,
do you look at the other one and you go,
yeah. You do. You just know, and like, obviously, right, that your knuckles felt more action than your face or your body did. You know that it's instinctive, and if unless it's very close to like a draw, then. But other than that, you would know. Yeah.
Mate, going back when no one knew who you were, what was it that made you believe one day that you'd be world champion?
Well, how far back? I didn't. I mean, first of all, it was to be Irish champion and then box for Ireland and stuff. And when I started to make that happen, but I figured out a way, the mindset and belief part, very early on. That when I do remember going professional, saying I can win a world championship. Didn't know it. I just sort of believed it, and so working in the background in the shadows. But here's the great thing about Brisbane, Australia, or Australia as a whole. If we have such fantastic fighters here, that when you come here and you spar these guys, and it gives you a gauge for where you're at. And if you can do well against these guys, then you say, actually, what can stop me from actually going that step further and doing what they did? And every spar that you get better, and every time you spar these guys, like when I went down to spar Daniel Gill, and he told me, he said, no one will ever match your footwork here in Australia, and onto the world scene. Your footwork's going to carry you a long way, which he was right. Imagine you get that, and then you're down sparring with Jeff Horn, he's your main sparring partner for 8 years, and he goes and beats Manny Pacquiao, and you had all these other good fighters around that you're fighting. Liam Parrow, I've been sparring him since 2017. He's won the world championship, and there's more. And so that belief starts to just solidify inside you up to the point where you're like, actually, this is mine to lose, But when the people first started to really look, I mean, there was signs of it all the way, right? But it wasn't until I'd say it wasn't until, my first world title fight in Germany, and he lost by a couple of rounds. So I think people already got the idea there. But that fight against Munguia, everyone seen that night that I was a world champion. I just didn't get the decision. So,
talk us through some of the most significant fights you've had. Ones that come to mind.
Okay, I mean, first off the bat, it was winning an Irish title. That was everything to me as a child, as a kid. The glorification of that in these boxing gyms, doing your rounds, going, the Irish championships, or that kid's an Irish champion. I used to spar these guys and get the better of them a lot of the time, and even in tournaments I beat them. But it took me a lot of years to win one. I think, and that was up here. I think I come in hoping to win, right? And it wasn't until I started to really believe that I was going to win that I did. So this were all little lessons for me about mindset, about really backing yourself and seeing yourself as the champion. And so then there was that, and then boxing for Ireland. I mean, that's the biggest honour I could have ever put on that Irish jersey that day. And funny enough, it was against Australia in Ireland. But that day I got to wear it. It was just the proudest moment of my life. And I got to win against the Queensland boy, which is, again, still blows my mind. The people around here still know him. His name was Fred Capes. They made the trip over. So you had all that, and then boxing for Ireland and doing all that at the elite level and all that, and travelling the world. They were great. When I went professional, pro debut, brilliant, got the knockout and everything, which everyone hopes to do. But the next significant one was fighting on TV for an Australian title. And I got a TKO win there, but all the crowd were going crazy. Like, it's still on YouTube. I look back every now and again just to look at it. There was tables of Irish just going crazy. And Jesus, that win was so... That's probably my most favourite fight ever. Just because I just sort of... It was just everything about it was perfect, right? And so... you move on from there and you have all your fights and wins, and then obviously, you know, you had the Mungia fight, which was just so significant. The way everything went down there, the training camp and everything, the fight itself, all up until the very decision, was just like a dream. It couldn't have gone any better until that decision came. But then after that, you know, you had a couple of whatever. You had the world title fight, which I won. Again, that was my lifetime's dream. But there was one thing further than that, which was the very last fight. And this was the most significant, was all these years I visualised, because I used to watch Bernard Dunn. I followed him. He was brilliant. And he won his world championship in the Tree Arena in Dublin. And I was up to watch him box up in the Tree Arena. And next thing... I went professional. There'd been no boxing fights there, but I dreamt of defending a world title there and being announced. I'd hear the words, "Welcome to the ring, world champion Dennis Hogan." As I'd be running every day, every spare minute I got, I'd be visualising it, feeling it, visualising my opponent, like the shadow of my opponent. Didn't know who it would be, but I visualised it might have been Gary Spike O'Sullivan, but I visualised the height. Anyway, after the Mungia fight, there'd been no fights in this place for 15 years. And next thing, boom, there was a fight card there in May after I'd won the world title fight in October. And lo and behold, I was on the card, and I warming up, and I came out, and the opponent, they're usually always taller than me, but this opponent was the exact same as the shadow I'd envisioned. And but when I heard those words walking into that place, that was it. I knew right then, like, that was I'd achieved that dream, which is crazy. It's crazy. So. So probably that last fight was the most significant when you look at all of that. Like, imagine visualising something for 15 years, hearing the exact words in the exact arena, and then for that to come around. I think, and then I knew at that point too, I think the rest of my life is how I choose it to be, because, you know, you don't know the twists and turns, the ups and downs, but eventually where I want to get to, I just have to focus on it and I'll get there. If I've manifested this, you know, what can stop me? So... It was a good day.
You just made an amazing statement. The rest of my life is, what would you say? The rest of my life is what I determine it to be. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. You could apply that in any area of your life, business, marriage, anything.
Yeah.
That literally the rest of your life is what you determine it to be. If you can visualise and get your mind there. Absolutely. We talk all the time, mindset and stuff, eh?
You versus you.
Yeah. We were saying that before. We'll talk about this
100% this week.
Yeah. The difference of you versus you. Did you want to say something?
Oh, sometimes I hate me, so I don't even verse me. So I don't know if that's bipolar or not, but yeah.
The good thing about fighting yourself is you know you're always going to win or lose. You can pick it.
What type of fighting are we talking about when it comes to yourself, though?
Jeez, look at that.
Well, mate, look, you've been in the ring that you've, you know, the stage you've had. You've been knocked down physically, mentally, and publicly. What do you do to come back from a setback?
Yeah, look, it's one of those. It's a very daunting moment, right, where you've had a setback, right. But the good thing about the setback is, you really do get a chance to learn what you've done wrong and where you can be better, you know. Because I've gone into fights where just say I've gone in a little bit injured, or I've gone in, say, sick, stuff like that, but I've won, and you don't learn a lesson when you've won. You only learn a lesson when you've lost. Going in against Tim Zoo with a broken nose 6 weeks previous and being inactive for all that time and everything, that was a real lesson for me. Again, you know, Tim may have beat me that night anyway. But just the lesson that I learned from that was, don't do that anymore, Dennis, especially now we're getting on in life, in my age, where my career is. It has an expiry date as a professional boxer. So I learned those lessons very, very well when I've lost. When you win, you just think you get away with it. You think you're superhuman. But the most daunting thing is, you know, when you've had a fight and you've had a loss, and you know where you went wrong. You've analysed it. You've chatted with your coach. You know, you've had a bit of time off too, and you got to get back up and go back to the grindstone. And you go back to the grindstone, but that very first day, right, where you're like, right, I'm back overweight now again, like compared to where I need to be. I've had a loss.
We know that pain.
Yeah.
Everyone says embrace the pain.
Yeah.
Embrace what? I love this.
Well, you got to learn to love it sometimes, don't you? But you've analysed all the bad stuff, and now you know that you're set back even further from your goal. And you have to get up one morning and start running and start eating well and start doing all that stuff. And that's the stuff that no one sees. That's the real sort of kicker. And that's the stuff I look back on, and I just got goosebumps there thinking, this is what really makes the fighter you see, they call it under the bright lights. That's the stuff he had to actually go through, where he didn't know if he was going to make it or not. He didn't know, and he was, as I said, he'd been eating, he's had some time off, he'd made big mistakes, he's further from the goal, and he still jumps back on the road at 6 o'clock in the morning and has that run anyway and starts to prepare to move forward again. And they're the moments that make you, you know, and everyone goes through them. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about training. Like in a week's training for you, what would be something that we all figure it's going to be hard, right?
Yeah.
But what would be shocking to the guys listening? Something that would be surprising.
Just what you have to push through. Like, you know, there's no fighter ever gets through a camp as well without being injured. Niggles, really sore stuff. And it's an amazing thing. What will shock you is whatever injuries you have, and like, when I say niggles, I'm talking really sharp, painful stuff. But it's not going to ultimately destroy your tendons or anything, you know, it's not going to maim you. So you got to push through that pain. But when a spar starts and someone's coming to take the head off you, that seems to fall away real quick, you know, and you tend to get through it. Yeah. But come the end of the spar, you're back, and then you're back on the table. Shout out to Lisa at Phoenix. She look after you, and she mends you back, and it's only about maintaining you to get you to that fight and have you ready. But the stuff that you got to work through, and then like for me, I'm one of those fighters too, where, you know, I've been over with the Cubans in Miami and all that, and they tend to be able to just roll at a pace and box and take their time and dance with the music, and there's always a beat in the background going doof, 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 doof. Every song just has that in the back of it, and they tend to bounce with it and roll with it. And you're thinking, Jesus, they're like, and I'm training like just 3 times as hard as them, right? And but then you roll up to the fight, and they can turn it on and be like lightning. And I think it might be genetics, but for me, or my Irish genetics, I have to always be in the hurt box training, or I'm not at my very best for the fight. I don't know what that is, but I think it's a genetic thing. I think it's a VO2 max. I always have to be in the red, or I'm not getting any fitter. And so I just have to be in excruciating pain all the time. And so I don't know if that's a blow to anyone to understand that. But there's really, you know, and my strength coach makes a joke too, where I was coming back. I was out in Miami before my fight with Charlo, and my hip had gotten so tight, and I was the second round on the bag, and I dropped. And luckily, the Miami Dolphins recovery team were in that same building. So they brought me in, they established there was a little muscle in here on my hip, they electroded me, they did a couple of things, and they had me ready for sparring 2 days later. But the next day we said, let's go in and go light on the bag. And my strength coach still talks about it to this day, Chris Muckert, shout out there, that he said, I'll go down and get some ice for the... as soon as the bell went, I just do, they could hear me going 100 miles an hour. But that's the way it is for me, and that's how I was tuned to be. And I suppose if it's not like that, I would never have been who I was. But these are all the things that people don't understand the way a fighter is, or especially the way I was. It was all or nothing for me at any point. You know, if I could stand and be there, I was giving it everything. So,
what's one part of your training regime that you absolutely hate, but when you're in a fight, you're so thankful that you did?
Look, I think it's absolutely hate
Cardio?
No, that's all easy stuff.
I fucking hate cardio.
It's all easy stuff.
Let's go for a run. No,
I want to shoot cardio. I
Yeah.
want to kill cardio.
if cardio was a person, come here, mate.
I literally bought guns so I don't have to run.
Look, it's the accumulation. See, what would happen, right? It's probably the sparring. It's probably the hour again before a spar, because you know everything is geared around all your cardio, your strength and conditioning, and your pad work and everything. I always go really hard on all that, but you have to get in the ring and you got to spar well, because what you do in that spar is going to determine what you do in the ring. Everything for me is programmed in. You know, even right now as I'm practicing my public speaking, which I know we'll probably talk about, I'll keep my hand here to keep the mic close, you know, and everything I do, if I don't do that as I'm practicing, I won't do it in it. And I'm very programmable like that. It's a very good thing for me to have had, but as I do, so what I'm getting at is when I get into that spar, I want to do absolutely everything right in that spar, so then that translates over to the fight. Any bad habits you have in the spar are bad habits you're going to have in the fight. So coming up to that spar, and some of the guys that would come to spar me, because I was at such a high level for so long, I mean, I got my top 15 world ranking in 2014. So I was, you know, for 10 years, anyone that was coming to spar me was looking to gauge where they're at. They probably were, and I wasn't having any easy sessions before that spar. I was going all out as well to be as fatigued, like to get all that work in, but I was coming into these spars fatigued to still push through. When I know a lot of these guys, their coaches said, have a rest, you're sparring Dennis tomorrow, have a rest today. You know what I mean? Or just go light, be nice and fresh for Dennis tomorrow. So I was always, and this, I say that was happening the majority of the time. So I was always sparring these fresh kids that were looking to make a name for themselves against me in these spars. You know, and I still had to get the better of them and show them who the lion was. That was the feeling for me. So these were extremely hard spars for me, because I was under fatigue in duress the whole time.
That's mindset right there, isn't it? Because the body's hurting. Everything wants to tell you to quit, give up, just take it easy. But you've just got to find that in a mongrel.
Yeah.
Like the Irish to your brother.
Yeah.
You made me think, though, I hadn't thought of this, but what you do in the sparring side of things is what you do in the fight. It's so reflective on so many other areas, because we say it all the time. You know, the areas that we focus on here is on the show, but also just as men. But in businesses and marriages, things like that, like if you're failing on the main stage let's just talk your marriage. If you're failing on the main stage of marriage, you can reflect it back and go, okay, well, what's the sparring like? Like, what's happening behind the scenes that you're doing that the main stage is showing, that, you know, the main fight. Because I hadn't thought of that. Like, the importance of the sparring is what you're going to do in the fight. I've never thought of it before.
There's a saying as well that says the behaviours you walk past are the behaviours you accept. Yep. You know, and so that's you know, and that's why, you know, and especially in this day and age, that's it's a hard thing to do, because that's, you know, that's what's going on. But but you can control what happens in your own backyard, and so. And it's definitely the same because in a spar, you know, if you've dropped your hand when he's coming there, it's like, well, Dennis, you're going to do it in a fight, so keep your hand up at that exact moment. And there's so many things I had to do. There's so many things I had to get right in these world title fights. So many things, because I knew what my strengths and weaknesses were. Right, a weakness for me against Munguia and Eggington and Charlo and Tim Zhu and was don't get caught on the ropes. These guys are just looking to get you on the ropes. They'll bludgeon you if you stand there for a second too long. If they catch you at one and you catch you off guard, they'll have another at least 6 to 8, you know, good blows landed on you, and that could change the whole fight. So, from in sparring, yes, I could have afforded to stand against the ropes against some of my sparring partners. And I quite enjoyed that little Mayweather stuff. I could block it with that and then come back to the body or come over the top. Or I had little ways of doing it. But if I was sparring these monsters, if I was going to fight a monster, which I did a lot of the time, couldn't even do that in sparring. So you know what I mean? So the mindset had to be already there. I was already tuning into the fight. And I made that point because that's what you said. Coming into the fight, what were you happy that you did? And that was I did everything right in my sparring. Listened to my coach and got it right. Yeah, and there's sometimes your coach will say something to you that you don't even know you're doing. And you don't really, you can't see that you're doing it. You might not even believe you're doing it. But you got to learn to listen to your coach. He's seeing something that you're not. And I always had that faith in my coaches. And it was good to do that. So
just on that note there, adding to that, mate, my 14-year-old son, stuff that he does and says, and we say, mate, you're doing this. And I'm just here to let you know, because if you're not aware of it, you can't change it. And he'll swear black and blue. He never said it, never did it. So there's even been points where I've set my phone up and videotaped.
Yeah.
I said, you can't argue with that now, can you, mate? Like, there it is.
The sneaky dad maneuver.
Yeah, well,
the camera.
But like, so what you were saying before, you can apply what Dennis is saying to all aspects of your life.
Yeah.
Like, just then listen to your coach. Like, be coachable.
Yeah, be coachable.
Yeah.
And so the conversation I had yesterday, that fighter that I've got the privilege of managing, Danny Keaton. I was over. Do you guys know Anthony Fenge? It was Anthony and Saya Fenge. They played for the Wallabies. Saya is the guy with the dreadlocks, and Anthony. They were twins, and they played fantastic for Australia. Over 50 caps for Australia, and for Queensland Rays. They played a lot of years with the guys. Anyway, we were over there yesterday because they sponsor Danny, and he's asking the question. He goes like, what makes a fighter go all the way? And it's the first thing I said was coachable, and that's exactly what Danny is. He's coachable, and you get the right team together. And then anything is possible. And that's what it is. Coachable is the most... you can go from being anything in the world, right, to being down here, up here, whatever. If you're coachable, you can go anywhere.
Yep.
If you're not, you can't go anywhere.
Yep.
So, very important.
Would you consider coachable a similar aspect to... It's one thing for you to be the boxer and your coach to go, right, we're here on purpose for me to coach you, right? Compare that to, let's just say, your circle of friends around you in life that also sees things in your own life that goes, hey... I've noticed this, you might not see this, but I've noticed this in how you conduct business or you conduct your relationships. Would you see that a similar thing like coaching, like that circle of mates that you put yourself around that see things that you don't?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I don't know all that many people that would be willing to ask those questions and say, actually, did you... I've back in my day, I've woke up, say, from parties or whatever, I'd be like, was I being a dick last night? Or was I this or... certain things like that, and I'd want to know. I don't know many people that have ever asked that question to anyone else, so a lot of people don't really want to know all that much, do they? I was always that person that wanted to be better than the last time, so again, that's just a lucky trait that I've had. But yeah, you're right, you gotta I have a lot of respect for people that will take advice and do that and look to be better. Yeah.
The critics, the fans and media, when the noise gets so loud on the outside, how do you get focus?
Look, well, number one, if you look at it, like if people are making that much noise, you're obviously doing something right, So that's obviously number one thing. But for me, it's always internal. Everything's internal, It's I never look externally for anything I need in here. It's like the Wizard of Oz, the lion was looking for courage, but turns out it was in here the whole time. So it was the scarecrow. He was looking for a brain, wasn't he? Turns out it was in here the whole time. You're looking out there for something that's in here. And that was always the way I was with boxing. And everyone's got an opinion, and not many people can do what I do. So why would I listen to what they're saying? So that's the number one thing off the bat. I've seen some really funny headings about myself on the paper, but but I've never had anyone walk up to me. I've never lost any respect from people that I respect because of these things, and it is what it is. Look, it's exposure at the end of the day. They say there's no bad press as well. So but I will be honest. At the very start, when I first came to Australia, the first time I got phased, I got rattled. Some guy who had no idea what he was talking about, I'd gone over and I'd had a pro fight. And some guy, his name was Left Hook something, right? And I don't even know what it was a Facebook or something. And he said, Dennis, why don't you come back to Ireland and have a real fight instead of being over there in Australia working on your tan or something? Now, he had no idea. He had no idea. Anthony Mundine, Daniel Gill, all these. Jared Fletcher was my sparring partner at the time. He had won the Commonwealth gold against a two-time world champion in James DeGale. He won a professional and an amateur world champion. Yeah, I was around all these legends. Well, this was at the very start, 2011. I wasn't quite around them yet, but they were in Australia. For that guy to have said that, and it shook me. I thought, I got embarrassed. I was like, oh God, people are talking shit about me and all. You look even 2 years later, and I'm like just slagging off people, not being bad to them, but just feeding them back, having fun with it. Yep. So within 2 years, this thick skin had grown all over me. Give it another couple of years, forget about it. Bulletproof, like nothing could faze me. Yeah, but it just happens with time. Just the more you take. And then the more you see, these people are fools. No one's even... And then even if I message back, I'll probably get a ton of likes. And then that person... And then you feel bad. But one of the things that was a real eye-opener for me was someone has a pop, right? They think you're not going to answer them, right? If you answer them and go, actually, you're kind of right about that one, but I did have a bad day. We'll try to be better next time. And a lot of times they'll go, oh, Dennis, because they didn't think you were going to answer back. Oh, Dennis, I did, all the stuff you've done so far is brilliant. And I wish you all the best with your career champion. And they even nearly regret saying it. They just wanted your attention.
Was that you? Can I have your autograph?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I've just sent you a shirt to sign, mate.
And it's sad for them. It's sad that they needed to, they just wanted to feel heard, I suppose. I don't know.
So you basically go from a place of having anxiety and maybe some form of imposter syndrome to pure resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely does happen that way, yeah.
That's what happened to me after being married for 17 years. Yeah.
Who was the imposter?
Yeah. Who stuck in, mate? For those that are listening, Miguel's wife sitting in the sound booth.
She just gave me the bird. It's a healthy relationship.
Immediately put her phone away.
Why did you just take a ring off?
Discover multi-award-winning real estate with podcast sponsor One Life Property Group, based on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, specialising in everything from high-end duplexes to multi-residential developments, ensuring the highest quality workmanship. Visit onelifepropertygroup.com.au today to achieve excellence in your next property development.
Mate, look, did the bad decisions from the judges ever make you want to quit or advocate for changes in boxing regulations?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a tough thing. It's after my grandfather's last words to me was give it everything you've got, and after that Munguia fight, where it was clear to the world that that I had won that fight. The commentators said I'd won the fight. Everyone there said I'd won the fight. And the judges sitting there, one gave it a draw, and the others, one gave it 1 round against me, and another one gave it 2. And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought to myself, at this point it would be easy for me to walk away and give it up, and just rest on the laurels that I know I won one. And it is what it is. But, I just had this faith that I said after it, I'm a world champion now. I just need my belt, right? So I'm going to keep going. So I said, I'm going to have that faith to move forward. There was a lot of debate. That fight was rescored, but there was a lot of debate in the boxing world about fair fights and people getting their decisions and the judges doing what they're doing. It was brought to my attention that fights like, say, Liam Parrow actually was a B-side when he beat Matisse over in Matisse's country, and he did get the decisions. Very rare a B-side will get a win over an A-side on the A-side's card, unless it's a knockout or something completely whitewashed. But that was a good fight, and he got it. And someone said to me, whether it be true or not, whatever, your fights and what happened over in Mexico actually has set the tone for these other fighters now from Australia. They know we're good, right? They know whatever. They know we're willing to travel. But, it sort of opened the door for us to get proper decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can't keep ripping us off all the time. So I'm quite proud of the fact that I might have had a bit of an impact on that one. But overall, it is a money business more than a sport, believe it or not. And as long as there's no unions, which there's still not, it's always going to be leaning towards unfair decisions towards the champions while they're the A side, which means their promoters are the ones that have the fight on. But that's why it goes to a purse bid. When you're a mandatory, you have to get the mandatory for it then to go to a purse bid. And the purse bid makes it fair between the two promoters, your promoter and the champion's promoter. Say if I'm the mandatory. If I'm not the mandatory and I'm given a voluntary defence, which just means they pick you out of the top 15, you're going on to theirs and you're up for debate whether you get a decision or not. Yeah, it's crazy. So.
You said your grandfather's last words to you were, give it everything you've got.
Yeah.
You take it back to when you were 5 and 6 and your grandfather would pick you up in the car and get you into becoming the very start of becoming who you are. And then his last words to you being, give it everything you've got. There's a little bit more about that story on who you were as a person and the influence your grandfather had in his last days. Do you mind touching on that a bit more?
Oh yeah. No, it's he was always that person, like he's because obviously with the boxing part of it, he was always like when I won, when anything I'd won, I was him. I couldn't wait to talk to about her. He like I remember going down to watch Ireland versus USA back when I was a kid, and he said, "You'll fight these someday," right? Which again is another goosebump moment for me, because he couldn't make it to that one to one of them, but one of the first ones he did make it to was again Ireland versus USA, and I had a win that night, which was phenomenal. So it's just crazy, and that would have been 12 years later or something like that. But yeah, so look, he had such a profound impact on me. I felt a lot of times like I was doing it for him as well, which there's nothing wrong with. A lot of people said, "Oh, you need to be doing it for yourself." Well, I am, but I couldn't wait to see his face when I told him that I'd won and stuff, because again, like I said, he wasn't able to go to all of them because it was fucking cold. It's cold in Ireland, and he can't be out around the cold for that long because he used to keep getting sick, getting pneumonia quite easily with what it was. So anyway, no, it's when I left Ireland, when I went professional, again, like he was always my biggest advocate, telling anyone who listened about my fights with immense pride. I figured that out when I went home, and when he was sick, and I was in the room, which he eventually passed away in, and all the nurses were like, "Oh, you're the boxer." Anyone who walked into that room had known who I was, So I knew he was very proud of that. But just before he had gotten sick, I was interested because I had 9 fights in 11 months in my first. I don't know if any pro's ever done it like that, but I just fought nearly every 5 weeks or something sort of like that. But in between that, he rang me one night. I'm going for my third professional fight. He rang me one night, and he had known that he could hear in my voice that I was drinking. And he said to me, he just tried chatting away to me, and he could hear it. I'm sure he could hear it in my voice. And he said to me, he goes, "Listen, son, give up that drink and give it everything you've got." And he just passed the phone back to my mum. I was like, I actually just got I was angry a little bit. I said, "What's he saying that for?" Anyway, fast forward on to a couple of months, and a short while, and then he ends up passing away, getting sick. I went back to Ireland, and it didn't get to speak to him again because he was unconscious when I arrived. And then that was it. He was gone. I went back to Melbourne for my third professional fight, which resulted in a draw. It was my only draw in my whole career. I did get to 22-1 as I was undefeated to my 22nd fight, but I had a draw sitting in there. But after that draw, his last words just started, and I just went, Jesus, do you know what? Now's the time. I'm going to listen to what he just said. And he was right. And I looked in the mirror and I said, this is the turning point. From now on, I'm the world champion. And every decision I make will be about achieving that goal. And that was it from then on. That was it. I give up drinking, and every decision that was made. You coming out tonight, or are you doing whatever? No, whatever. Like, unless I was out from a fight, I'll go out for an hour. That'll have no bearing on my training tomorrow. I won't eat out and fast food on the way home. I'll go home and make some eggs. Everything was based around being world champion for the next decade. It was crazy, and that was his words.
Powerful words.
Oh, mate. Well, going back to what you talk about with coaching, right? Because there's one thing for a coach to critique your stance, critique the throwing of the jabs, or critique you as a boxer. And then when he gives you advice, you take it on board and all of a sudden you become a good boxer. Mirror that into people in our lives that are watching our life like your grandfather did. And to some degree, not so much life coach you, but to give that advice on not a boxing perspective, but hey, I can hear it in your voice. Give up your drink and give it everything you've got. When you take advice like that kind of thing, the way you do with your coach, the switch mentally, like the difference is huge.
Yeah.
Or I should say the similarities are huge. Like when you're taking advice, because you think of the wisdom that gets passed down from people that have been there before us. Because so much wisdom comes with age, also with experience. But when someone like a grandfather or a father or some kind of father figure can, let's just say, hear it in our voice or watch what we do in life, when they can come from that perspective and go, mate, I'm hearing it in your voice. I'm seeing what you're doing. Take this advice. Do this. And then when you allow that to be the flick of the switch, and then you said the next 10 years your focus went straight to, and you become world champion. World difference. Yeah, look, and again, like, here's the thing that we spoke about before. If I hadn't had a draw in that next fight, and the draw was because I went home and he was sick, and I drank and did all that when I was there, and I wasn't dealing with it too well. Like, it was the one, it was tough. And so, doing everything I did, and then to go back and have a draw when I should have beat, everyone knew I should have beat that guy. He was a kickboxer, right? And the guy who was meant to fight me pulled out, and he got drafted in from New Zealand. Now, he was bigger and stronger than me. I fought a guy heavier than me. But he was a kickboxer. But he should never have had a draw. But he had no right having a draw with me that night. I should have really and I did feel like I won. One judge had given it to me. But when you look back at it, like, it's like that. It took for him to say that, and for that draw to happen, for me to really take it on board. And like I said before, this is the point I'm making. It usually takes a loss for you to understand, this is a learning curve. Because say I had got away with that, say I had come back and won that fight, would I have had that moment as well where I would have looked inward to see what's going on here? Oh, okay, I know what this is. So again, it is, unfortunately, sometimes the hardest lessons we learn are the best, unfortunately. Yeah. I was talking to you, Mikey, this week about a new business opportunity that's come up in work. And Dennis, you've just said something that's made me think of this, right, where you take the losses, the learning in the loss and not in the wins, right? Because I was talking about this business opportunity with this new builder that's come along. But it's making me rethink all of that now, because if I look at the loss from the last one, this is showing all the exact same signs. So if you take it as the loss and go, well, I'll learn from the loss from the last one, do I make the same decision this time? Because I think right across the board we do that with everything.
Yeah, we
the lessons in the losses.
Most definitely.
Yeah, that's it. You're all with doing things not right till it becomes a loss, and then you learn from it, unfortunately. But if you can get yourself a mentor, whether that be just listening to your dad, like you said, or listening to someone, listening to your coach, and just like I said, sometimes you're in there and you don't even think what your coach is saying. You can't feel it or see it. Just trust. People aren't talking to you for the sake of, breathing hot air in your ear. They're telling you. It's time to listen. And when I started listening, it just changed everything.
I think when you're taking that advice or being coached by someone, you need to look out to someone that's got the credibility, someone that's been there and done it, right? Yeah. Like, you're not going to listen to old mate down the road that's got one tooth in his head and he's a bar rat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's his credibility? But then I suppose again in saying that, what's his story too?
Yeah.
Who was he before he became that? Or has he always been like that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think getting mentors and coaches is they've got to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
know where they're coming from.
Look, speaking of mentorship, we're all fathers around this table. Dennis, you're a father, mate.
Yep.
What changed for you?
Look, yeah, for me to win the championship was always my goal and go back to defend it in Ireland. But I mean, it definitely always became about them, and like that whole thing for me. The motivation going into my world title fight where I won it. It's on Fox Sports. I showed a clip in my presentation where Ben Damon knew the story and he's the Fox presentator, and he brought it up. He said, "Now, Dennis, we know that we know that your daughter is a big inspiration for you." And he said, he brought it up, and so the story that he brought up, and I explained it was, I was talking to Aria. We were just in the hall beside the room, and she said something. I don't know what I was doing, going training again. So I was going to be spending time away from her for the next while, and so I just told her. I said, "Look, I've got to do this. This is my last shot at getting the world title belt. This is my last opportunity." She goes, "You could be world champion." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, Daddy, I really hope you win. I really wish you can win." And at the time, I was like, "Whoa." But when Ben Damon brought it up on a spotlight on me, I was like, start tearing up, and that's fucking all over YouTube. Went out live on Fox Sports. So I showed it in my presentation, but in that moment, I realised that, it's not only am I showing them that time away from them is leading to somewhere, but it's actually all for you. It's not just for me anymore. It's not just it was for my grandfather also, and for my family to enjoy and everything. But now I need to show you that, and this is just a little bit as well. Just even just chatting to, "Oh, Daddy, can you stay? Listen, darling," and then I'll bring it back to say, "Listen, we're going to Malulaba. We're going up Sunshine Coast at the weekend. We go swimming, we do that, we do this. This is I'm going off to make sure that we can do that." Okay, Daddy. So I've caught on to something there which I think works. But overall, right now, it is, me and my partner, we talk about it. We've had a great relationship, and it becomes about the kids mostly. And we joke around and say, "Geez, what will it be like? When it's not all about them." Will we be like, will we still? But no, but we will, and it's, I don't know, it is the greatest driver that you could possibly have, I reckon. You would agree?
Right. Well, having kids has been phenomenal.
We were literally talking about this the other day. Like you talk about all your fans and your cheerleaders. There is nothing quite like it when your little girl comes up and gives you that hug and sends you off for the day. Like, it's just that whole other reason for doing it, hey?
Yeah, that's it.
It's a difference when you hear it from your wife. You know that they know it makes a difference. Like when you're words to a man, they're encouraging. They push us further. There's no doubt about it. And when our wives know that, and then for them to tell us, they know what it feels, right? But when you hear it from your child who doesn't know that, what it does to you, you know it's genuine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what your wife say isn't genuine,
but
they know it does things on the inside. But when you hear it from your kid, and
it's organic,
totally organic.
It's
coming from a place of like they've actually admired or seen what I've done, and it actually gives you goosebumps even just thinking that.
Yeah, it is. But that's what it is. That is what it is. And so I could talk on it for a while. I probably got to jump around a little bit there because there's just so much inspiration that comes from them, and for doing a great job for them and looking after them and protecting them. When they're in bed at night, and you've given it your all that day, for them to be up there snug and secure, and you're prepared to do anything. And if you heard a noise at the door, you'd be prepared to do anything. Just that feeling at night, when everyone's going to bed and everyone's healthy and happy, it's quite a good feeling. There's no better feeling.
Sticking on kids for a little minute, when your kids get older and they look back, what do you hope that they say that they've learned from watching you?
They already say off the bat, "My daddy's the world champion. My daddy's cool," right? So, which is cool too. But yeah, it's not really supposed to be about that. It's I suppose. Look again. I want to be a good mentor to them. I want them to turn around and say, Daddy, like, you know, or should I say, you know, whatever age they are, say they're 18. I want them to think that I led them in the right direction, and you know, and I taught them stuff about, even say, you know, finance, this stuff that matters, stuff that's going to help them in life. Respect, being, having good morals and values, to get them to a point of where they're, you know, meeting with maybe their future husband, and that journey is, I think, is going to be quite important, you know, for many reasons. So, and if we can get to that point where, you know, if I call them up and say, let's go for lunch, and they're prepared to spend time with me over going messing with their friends, even for 1 hour on a Saturday, you know, and then I think that I've won a lot also.
I've got this one kid that won't even go to the gym with me anymore. He chooses his friends over me. Is that right, Samuel, in the sound booth?
That was the one that you just chopped out of the will?
That's the kid.
Is that the one?
That's him, yeah. Just dropped him. It's like, won't even
But
go
if you look at Sam's body compared to Wayne's body, I think you can see which one's going to the gym and which one's not.
Oh,
I'll see him.
Sam does dumbbell curls. Wayne does Haribo curls.
Gummy bears.
Haribo
Curls. Gummy bears up.
Hey guys, stay tuned for the new podcast lineup coming at you next week.
Yeah. Whole brand new panel. Same question to you, lads. Actually, on that thought, when your kids look back, what do you hope they say about you?
Probably, well, I've been thinking about this a little bit this week, actually, just with, I think, the sacrifices, what you've done for them to ensure they've got a roof over their head, they feel loved, they feel safe, they're going the right way in life, and you hope that they will somehow take that on board in their own way and do a similar thing. Do it better than you. Stand on your shoulders and do it twice as good.
I'd have to agree with what Mikey just said, and adding to that, just for the kids to be proud of you and to want to call you their friend, not just their father.
Yeah, I can't.
Be good to get a Christmas card off them, you know what I mean?
Just be remembered.
Yeah, that's right.
Still your dad.
Yeah, just to not be denied.
I have a question. Has anyone here got a daughter and a son?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have 2 daughters, and so it's quite a significant thing, is it? What would you say the difference would be in raising a daughter and a son?
I can tell you right away. In Rakes, my daughter is my firstborn, and then I've got 3 boys below. Samuel's the middle of the 3 boys. So my daughter's 22 now, and she's in that, I'm not going to say, well, I wouldn't say she's in the dating scene, but she's at that time in her life where she's going, you know what, I have a desire to be married, I have a desire to have children, I have a desire to have, I guess what, a lifestyle that Lisa, who's my wife, have the lifestyle that Lisa and I have displayed to her. So she wants their married life and their kids, that kind of thing. But one thing I've always kept this in mind in raising a daughter is to always be the type of man she would want to marry.
Yeah.
To display that in everything.
Yeah.
And it's challenging too, because, you know, just like every marriage, there's disagreements, there's arguments, there's all that kind of stuff. And I remember saying this right at one of our very, very first podcasts. One of the things that Lisa and I have always done is that, yes, our kids, Lisa and I don't fight by any means, but there's always disagreements and arguments, just like any relationship. But I think it's also important to see, for your kids to see the making up, like the whole that, hey, everything's still okay. This is just a disagreement between 2 people, you know, because I think if you display to your daughter that you are a domineering, like, you know, the alpha male of the house and the domineering type, I think you can display a very fearful style of, because at the end of the day, though, I mean, look, Mike and I talk about this all the time, like the world is pretty messed up. Like, there are guys out there that are just dicks. Like, there are guys that you as a father of a daughter want to protect from. And I think one of the biggest things is to be the type of man that she's going to look for. So the qualities that you display as a man aren't red flags to your daughter, but big green ticks to go, I love what my dad is about this. I love the fact that my dad publicly shows affection towards my mum. Look, my kids will know this, that I only have eyes for one woman. Yeah. I'm a man right down to my core, though, like every man still has manly, what would you call it, battles or whatever. You know, there are attractive people out there, but
I think they're called boobies.
but
you're a red-blooded male. That's what I call it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the conversations I have with my sons too, like I don't keep these topics taboo or embarrassing or avoidable or unapproachable to my boys at all. Whenever they're spoken about tight out, like right out honestly, vulnerable, they're clear, because I want them also as boys to understand that, hey, yeah, dad still goes through battles, dad still goes through decisions. There's crossroads that we face as men within marriage and within parenting and within so many things. But in raising a daughter, I've always thought, no, I want my daughter to see the things in the way I've conducted a work-life balance, an at-home parenting lifestyle, a husband's figure, that she would go, I wouldn't mind finding a guy similar to that.
Acceptable behaviour, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there's something that I do with my daughters, and I always hug them, and I always have that time. And even if I have to go, I'll make sure that I'll even say, look, I should be gone now, but I'll stay here for one more minute. And I think what I've been shown to be, and I think we're the generation now that understands this. I think a couple before it would have been none of that, but I think what I've been led to believe, and I think it is true, is if you don't give them that little bit, they'll go looking for someone who will.
Yeah.
And that could be the guy, the guys that you don't want, who won't treat them well, and everything else. So I'm really, really emphasising that, and so I hope it's.
How old are your girls, mate?
8 and 5. Yeah.
All right.
I don't think your girls are going to have much of a problem, mate, when they're 18, 19. The blokes will be all knocked out around them, so they'll be fine.
Well, yeah, I'll leave the belt on display anyway in the sitting room. Everyone must come to the sitting room.
Answer the door with the belt on.
As a father of daughters, that's where it goes there, right? You've got to have the danger sign up to.
Yeah.
But mate, I've got a 14, 10 and 7, and we've always been huggers, like, always telling them we love them, cuddling all the time.
Yeah.
The last week, so I'll get up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock, and the last week in particular, I've been going to work really early, like leaving the house before the girls are up. My eldest, the other morning I was laying in bed and I saw a light flash through the hallway, and I thought, it's my time to shine. Someone's finally broke in. Let's go. I go out in the lounge. My daughter set her alarm to wake up, because she just wanted to be on the couch to give me a hug and say goodbye before she goes to work.
Yeah, that's good.
And that was the bit for me that it's been a big few weeks with work and the pressure's on and go, you're exhausted. That was the bit for me that was the reward. And that's what will come to you, mate, for doing what you're doing.
That's beautiful, man. Well, that's really nice. Yeah.
Because that's all organic notification, right? Like,
yeah.
She's paying attention.
Yep.
She's not primed.
No, she's up there. Yeah, it's awesome. Best feeling in the world.
Did you tell her you'd give her $50 if she did that or something?
Yeah. I was like, here's 50. Can you talk to your mum?
Yeah, I'd be just to wrap. I'd be gone out the gate, right, and I'd have my gym bag and I'd have my other stuff, my laptop and all in it, and after going out the door, and you have to latch the thing just about to get into the car, and I'd see Lola saying something, looking at me. Oh, jeez. You know what I mean? I'll go back in, but it's worth it. Like it's worth it.
It's your reason for fighting, though, right? Like you love your wife, you love your parents, your sisters, all your family. But man, when you got daughters, there's just that special. Yeah. It's like this super precious thing you got to protect with everything.
Yeah. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. There's only people that can talk back to me now.
You know what? Yeah, the only one that gets away with calling you an idiot, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sticking on families just for a bit longer. What does a healthy work-life balance look for someone who's a world champion?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's really, it's very hard to get everything right at one time. But for me, at the minute, it's about look, I'm trying to maintain a good level of fitness. Obviously, I've got a BDM job that I work at as well, and then I've got the motivational public speaking coming up as well. So I've actually been really busy the last year, but it's just about making sure that there's that hour and then hour a day, and then the weekend has to go towards them. and a little bit of social outlet as well. So it's really all just about balance. Like it's about trying to tick all the boxes, and I really am very conscious of it. Like I don't let one side slip at all, really too much. You will let it slip, but you just got to get right back the following week to where it needs to be. And overall, as a whole, like, you know, you keep getting it right. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough going. But look how fast time is going. Like, you know, you keep getting this right, and then all good things happen. And now, obviously, spending time now again in the boxing world with Danny, the fighter, as well. So that's taking a bit more time too. But if you can bring it together as well, like the girls are now, I call him the champ now, like, you know, and so let's support Danny as well. My active career is probably over. I could potentially have a farewell fight, but I'm not in training for it now, and I haven't been for a while. But again, that's only just something that I may do. It's just about bringing it all together, and just if you have the right people around you as well, your friends, your family, the things that you're doing can all sort of mix in together as well. You know what I mean? That's something I'm sort of focusing on at the minute. So,
taking them on that journey with you.
Yeah, everyone get together. You know, as long as you've got good people in your circle, there's no harm in doing that.
Yeah,
you know. So
absolutely,
Dennis, you mentioned your motivational speaking. Now, what's kind of the inspiration or motivation behind going down that line?
Look, initially, early on, I had sponsors that had conferences, big conferences, and. Fair play, they pushed me to say, you speak at this, like get up and do. But it didn't take too many years before I genuinely enjoyed it. And then I was getting hired by other people, real estate companies and all that. And I was doing that. And I went into a lot of personal development with MJB seminars. Mitch has been a mentor of mine for a very long time. And so, so I was like, well, what's your passion? So I wrote goals back in the day. First and foremost, being world champion. Another one was speaking. I genuinely enjoyed it. It's my passion. As you can see today, I'm not shy to, you know, tell a story or two. But it really became apparent to me throughout my career, those hard days like I spoke about, when you're getting back up and going again and you're doing certain things, and that belief that I have. And when I talk to people that didn't seem to have that belief in themselves, or that, oh God, and can you send me something on that? Like, so that's what they'd say. What do you do? How do you feel? Like they might say, how do you do in the morning when you don't feel like going sparring? And I say, well, the night before I visualise how I want the spar to go. And then I wake up and I visualise it again. And all these sort of little tactics and stuff that I have that have got me to where I am. And I know I send this to people and they're not going to do it. They might do it once, they might not keep doing it. But the consistency that I have and all of that. So I just think that I do have something to offer the world. And a lot of these hard times, my public speaking story, I thought to myself, I'm going to have a good story in years to come. And the amount of curveballs that I was thrown throughout my career, I kept saying to myself, this is actually going to make my story better. This is going to make my story better. This is going to make my story better. And then eventually when that all came together and that fight happened in Ireland, I just knew as well, like, I just knew that I have actually genuinely manifested this. I'm not saying that, you know, but I mean, it happened. And I said, this has to be a story. So when that all happened, I got going on it a little bit, but then I met with the Bradburys. I'd known Stephen I spoke on the same nights as Stephen Bradbury a few times. He's the best speaker I've ever heard. I only heard him again a couple of weeks at an event I was with through work, and he just blows the roof off the place. And his wife Amanda had done some stuff in circles with us as well, with the battery card world and that. So she's taken the time. So they've mentored me, and my story already is good enough. But the way that they've put it, that Amanda has helped put it together, and Steve facilitating on that as well, it's something that I just absolutely love telling. And now I've done a good few gigs, and I'm just getting fantastic feedback, and I genuinely love it. I know it can help people, and especially with the feedback I've been getting. So,
but in every talk that you do that, and all these things that you're putting together, in every talk that you do, What are the key messages that you absolutely refuse to leave out?
Well, it's a full presentation now that it's the way it is. Obviously, it starts off talking about my grandfather and that conversation, where I came from Ireland and the way it was in Ireland and what went on, following on through into the Mungia fight. I mean, in that Mungia fight, I was standing there at the end of it. Channel 7 News were interviewing me, and like the whole vibe there was that you've just been ripped off. You know, the commentator had said it live on his own, and Mungia was there, and he was like, oh, he's literally commiserating, like he's like, oh, like fuck, it's not my fault, kind of thing. I'm not the judge. You know, it's weird. Anyway, Channel 7 said to me, they asked me, and I said, look, tonight I won a world championship. I just don't have my belt. I'm a world champion here. It's only a matter of time till the belt shows up here. And I said that, and I put it out there that day, you know. So, you know, it's... and then, obviously, you know, I just had to work on making that happen. And you know, here we are. So
You mentioned before you possibly could come in for like a bit of a send-off fight. If that was to come about, would you do it against Mungia?
I'd love to. Imagine, like, 'cause the thing about it is, right, it's about how I knew it was my time to pull back from boxing is because you can't get up for any more fights. How can you hear those words, welcome to the Tree Arena, world champion Dennis Hogan, and then come back and get back up for another fight? But to get revenge on that night, you know, it's not so much about Mungia, it's about what happened, you know. But to right that wrong would be fantastic. That would get me up. But he's since been caught. Do you know, on the night of the fight, there was no blood test taken. And we were like, where's the doping crew? They're like, they were meant to be here, they weren't. Oh, well, see you later. And he's now since been caught taking steroids.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not as if we didn't know, you know. But we thought, well, they're going to have to be quite smart about it, aren't they? If they're going to, and then, yeah, there was no blood test. There was no drug test. So
You'll have to do the fight in Russia, mate.
oh yeah, we'll all get on a bit of something there. But yeah, have you guys heard of this new Olympics? This Olympics where they're all these athletes. Have you seen the swimmer?
Right,
There's a picture of the swimmer. So he was
guy or a girl?
a retired
Oh, yeah, I
swimmer,
just
a
thought
guy.
that was the new women's champ.
Yeah. No, he. So there's now going to be an Olympic. It won't be called Olympic Games, but a games where everyone can take whatever they want.
Yeah.
But there's a swimmer who had retired, and he was put on some unbelievable anabolics. But his traps and his underarms are. He's like a balloon here.
Yeah, he
He's
looks
literally
like
a
AI's
kite.
done him, yeah.
And he's just getting ready to go. But one of the guys that has been given this stuff, he's already smashed the world record. And the legit people are hating it. But what he put on his heading was fastest whatever lap time in history. And which you can't deny that, whether he's on stuff or not. But doesn't mean he's got the legit world record. But they're doing the games where everyone's getting on stuff. So Russia will have a good...
So step up to the line.
Yeah.
Woo, let's go.
Well, okay, you know what? I don't know if I'm against that, to be honest. Look, I love the fact that...
do it.
No, but think about it, right? I have no
If
problem
you're going to
hearing-
bet on something, that sounds like damn good
No,
fun.
but I
doesn't
think it'd be harder to bet. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Who's got the best gear?
Who's got the best cocaine? Yeah, whatever it is.
No, but that's the thing. Like, it's one thing because
So we can have it in here too, because this is kind of a sport.
I'm positive you rock up every week on something.
It's called ADHD.
Yes,
buddy.
Viagra.
But you think about it, like we can appreciate like achievements like what Dennis has achieved, but also so many other people. It's one thing for us to sit back and go, the dedication, the discipline, the self-control, the training regime to get yourself to a point on what you can do naturally. But surely it would be entertaining to go, right, okay, that's phenomenal achievements. Let's open up a games on do whatever you want to yourself and see what your body can do.
But where does the indemnity lie in that? Like, where does the insurance lie in that?
Oh, you have
You
to.
know.
Well, even I jump into the ring, I sign a waiver for my life.
Yeah.
So they just do the same, don't they?
I suppose.
But they're going to
Your heart
sign
blows up
waivers.
when you're on stage. 'Cause
Well, that's
you've
you
overdosed.
know, for their organs.
true.
They're going, you know, for
Yeah, it
us,
should be a short
it's about
career.
getting a punch to the brain. For them, it's their heart explode, I suppose, or their liver fail or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Crazy.
But you know what I think would be funny, right? What if we do this, right, and we do it in boxing, and then we take a lot of the guys we suspect and say, you guys go off and do what you want, and see that a lot of those guys won't even improve because they're already on it.
Yeah.
So
That's it. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that shine a light on a lot of the problems that's in the sport,
If you went to, I won't mention Miguel's name, but if you went to someone like Miguel and went, hey, mate, there's no rules, go do what you want and come back. And he comes back and there's no difference. He goes, see, I knew it. You're on it the whole time.
Maybe you come back and go, I don't want to do it anymore. Now I can.
When you're allowed to cheat. Not saying you cheat, I'm not saying that, just for the record.
Well, that's not called cheating, though, that one. The games. The games isn't anyone cheating, which is what's appealing to it. It's everyone gets to do that, but it's not cheating. So
you look at the stuff that it does to your body. I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger being interviewed about, obviously, his career as a bodybuilder. And everyone knows that he was, because he will come out and say he took so many things. And I remember seeing an interview saying, do you regret, within the journey, do you regret all the things you've taken? And he said, I don't regret whatsoever. He said, it made me super rich, it made me super famous, all that kind of stuff. He goes, I don't regret it. He said, but I regret what it's done to my body every single day. He said, I walk in pain every day.
Look at Ronnie Coleman.
I was just going to say, have you seen Ronnie Coleman?
Yeah.
I saw him and Jay Cutler got up last week to get an award. Jay Cutler's there. Jay's been on stuff too.
And he's
hunched over and he's whole
taking
lounge.
And did you see that showed you the before and after when he was actually on stage competing with him? They were touching each other's
So we must have seen the same one.
thighs.
Yeah.
And then what he's like now.
Poor dude, eh?
So I wonder, apart from the joints, you're so strong you might have destroyed your joints, right? I get that. And I spoke to guys that have taken steroids and they're real big and it's just, their muscles can pull it, but their joints are still, they're just their joints.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? But what is it for Arnold Schwarzenegger? What was it? Is he talking about his joints too? Or is he talking about, has his muscles had a reaction from going smaller again?
Oh, no, he was referring to the joints.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah. Just the pain now and the agony he walked around. So, he still holds himself up quite well.
Yeah.
Not like Ronnie, but definitely holds himself, quite well.
Mate, Arnie's still doing movies and TV shows. And
He still works out too, eh?
Yeah, he does. Upper body. That's it.
Just big flappy skin and an old face, but he's punching out
He just does upper body. Like, he can't do anything
right.
from his hips down, pretty much. He's buggered. But he sits down, he does his curls and,
Harry Bose.
Mate, look, when it comes to feedback that you've received, what's one thing that someone has said that has hit you quite hard? Like, what's one thing that did get to you?
Oh,
Just in feedback rock recently.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, from the last one, right? There was a guy there who had been, he was one of the big bosses there, and first of all, the visualization, he said, I've got you on that. He goes, I visualized everything. And so there was two companies merged together. He was one of the bosses, and he said, I visualized this merge. I come in when things were falling away and he goes, I come in, I visualized where we want to be in 5 years, and we got there in 3. And he goes, I'm all over that, right? And that was cool to hear. And then you had, there was girls there that knew nothing about boxing, and they had said to the main guy, they had said, wow, like what went on with Dennis, like with the fight purses, for world title fights, everything, because we, they tried to shaft us. We were meant to fight Miguel, and then they said, Golden Boy reached out and said, we'll give you a 3-fight deal. So we were working on that, and then the WBO president who works in with them, right, it's all jumped in and said, there's no deals. Fight has to happen now. Get it done in the next 6 weeks. Before you knew it, we were going to Mexico. We didn't have time to try and get the fight in Australia or anything like that. This is how they all play in against you, And so, with everything going on, and then there was the Munguia fight, where we wanted to fight in Australia, they wanted to fight there. They were offering money to come here. I had to go to a purse bid. So again, we had to go to a purse bid, and all the money went to that, and I didn't get paid for that fight. So there's all these obstacles that I'm not even talking about to get to where you wanted to be. Again, when I speak about this in my presentation, the way I laid it out, they were all blown away by the stuff that I went through to get to that point, the intricacies of what goes on. Now, it is an hour presentation, so I hit the nail on the head on every point. But they were like, and the nice part was they turned around and said, Jesus, after hearing this story, we have it easy here, don't we, boss? And he's like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Everyone has it easy for him. But again, and I think it was the question you asked before too, but just at the end where I wrap it up, we'll talk about resilience, perseverance, belief, gratitude, support systems, ask, believe, receive, I hit on all of these topics and just little bits on them and how that related back to my story, and that obviously when it comes to relating to anyone really, but you know, the corporate world, you know, where their goals will look different to mine, but the principles definitely remain the same. So I can incorporate how that looks real quick, you know, at the end, and wrap it up all together. And just the feedback is great, mate. There was no one there that couldn't tune in and find something, even though it's a boxing story. And if boxing is not your values, you'll still find a lot in there that will go, you know, it's kind of, you know,
life lessons.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, you break it down to two things: motivation or discipline.
Yeah.
What do you think is most important?
Well, when you're motivated, you set goals, and when the motivation wears out, the discipline keeps you going.
Yeah. So discipline's definitely number one.
That's that's 100%. It. But oh, write as many goals as you want, right? When you're motivated, but be fair and reasonable to what your body can withstand.
Yep.
And then you got to follow through with discipline.
Yep.
I'm actually doing that myself at the minute again. I like to train after training. I used to do a bit of cardio before training, but now I've just said I'm going to do all my main trainings in the morning. And I don't mind getting out of bed when it's hot. I don't like getting out of bed when it's cold. But I just thought right now I want to challenge myself and go and just get up that bit earlier and go and get that done in the cold weather. And I think it's just going to stand to me. So I like to mix it up and keep stuff, because I had gone through a fair bit of stuff the last while. I've wrapped up a lot of stuff that was stressful and all of this. And now I'm like, oh, right, okay, I've actually got myself now to where I want to be. Okay, how do I challenge myself again? That's just the way I am. So
I was just going to ask that very thing. Like when you reach a peak or a pinnacle and you become a world champion, how does the discipline and the motivation change the next morning? Because if you, like right now, you've been out of boxing for a couple of years, right? So why get out of bed and train? You're not aiming to be world champion anymore. So why and how has the discipline remained?
But the standard for me and the way I held myself for so long was up here. And I can see how that can slip. And I don't want it to slip. And there's still that bit inside me that went, whoa. This is where we are, right? This is where we want to be, or we should be. You think we are, right? And it's okay to be in around here, but I definitely don't want to go down there. You know, I want to be around for my grandkids, right? Because my grandfather was obviously my mentor, inspiration, and I want to be that to my grandkids. First and foremost, to my own family. But then I still want to do that for them too, you know. They might listen to me more than, you know, like I did to mine, you know. So I've got that. Yeah, that's quite, you know, important.
Boys, want to add anything?
No, mate, that was absolutely incredible, man.
Dennis, that was, I love that.
Well,
that was insane, mate.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Well, look, guys, I'll even send you guys out an invite. A little plug here for, well, first and foremost, the Bradburys now own a pub. It's called Last Man Standing. It's, I think, 64 Castle Main Street, right beside Suncorp Stadium. And they're doing great things there. But upstairs, there's a function up there. You could actually hold a fight night up there. And my next, well, I don't know if it'll be my next, but we've lined up for September 18th. I'm going to do the presentation there. Steve Bradbury's going to MC it. And we're going to send out tickets, whatever level of that it is. But I'll send out to you guys, and it will go out live soon. Yeah,
appreciate that. No,
yeah,
that'll be.
We're there.
We'll do a night. We'll stay away.
Yeah,
we'll do that. We'll do a night in the city. We'll stay there for
100%.
Unreal, man. I appreciate it. We're definitely on that.
We'll probably go from this standard down to here.
I'll keep an eye on you.
Yeah, keep an eye on this one.
I dare say there'd be some pretty good bouncers at that event, mate. So.
Right next to me, mate.
Well, mate, we thank you so much for being a part of it, mate. That was incredible. Like, truly, it was a great chat. Really, really good, mate. So thanks for coming out and making the effort and being a part of it and sharing your life on this platform. We appreciate it, mate.
I really appreciate it, lads. It was really nice chatting.
Really good. Yeah. Really good. Well, gentlemen, thanks for joining us here once again at the Men's Collective Podcast. We are the Average Joes. Like we say every single week, get along to your meetup. Hit up all the social media platforms that we have, the website, see where all the meetups are, what the time's at, and get involved. And gentlemen, thanks once again for joining us, and
Thanks for the invite, mate.
Appreciate
Thanks for having
your
us
time.
on.
Really, really
Good to
Absolutely.
be back in the studio, guys.
Great to be back in it. All right, next week. Back in. Let's get the rhythm
do it.
going again. Excellent. Gentlemen, thanks once again. See you.